So
Yeah.
I don't have to explore. I've never had to explore it. Anyway, manifesting. So
Yes. So, where does the idea of manifesting originate?
I'm going to say I don't know. I don't know its actual origins because you have things like the Kabbalah, you have the basic Buddhist principle of karma, you have the Christian principle ask and you shall receive. Um, so it's almost like since we began worshipping, there seems to be some reference where there is some prayer, some sacrifice, and if I do this correctly, then the gods will favor me. If I do
Yeah.
it badly, then I didn't do it correctly, and the gods are punishing me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very it's one of those things that's very you blame yourself for it if it works, and if it doesn't work, you're at fault.
Yes, and
Yeah.
if it goes
And that
right, it's
that for me is my problem with it. But I did do um a whole kind of year looking at ancient Greece and cults through the work of people like Bettany Hughes, Alice Roberts, what's his other Dan Snow. So
yeah,
they're all, historians. They're all professors and massively qualified in their areas. So I've listened to their take on ancient Greece and cults and the Helen of Troy and the Hermetic Truths. I did. I listened to the Conspirituality podcast. They did a whole version cover on kind of the law of attraction, the Enlightenment period, and how it links to the Hermetic truths and back to ancient Greece. We've seen over the last couple of years people like Brett Weinstein make references on public stadiums about the rising phoenix from the ashes, where especially in the Trump rally before he was re-elected and stuff like that. So we see it almost everywhere. I think where people mainly recognize the kind of the law of attraction manifestation thing is within social media posts, within people on social media touting, all you have to do is think, meditate, believe, and it will be yours. And this kind of comes from the Amway playbook, which is what's his face? Bob Proctor, and then into
yeah.
Abraham Hicks and her partner. Um, and in it kind of comes literally, it runs right through MLMs, which are your multi-level marketing companies, and places like Amway, Herbalife, Isogenics, Avon, doTERRA, and all these other things. And as a result, I've always kind of been very standoffish of MLMs. Not always because I've understood them. I understand them now very differently to how I never used to understand them at all. But I remember being sucked into kind of the law of attraction style of thinking at a point where mentally I was completely and utterly broken. So I was massively vulnerable and I just needed something to pick me up. And it did. It seemed to, give me
Yeah,
something to focus on to get me back on track. But since then, I've done a whole U-turn to see actually how dangerous this this idea is, and it's an ideology. It's not a fact, it's an ideology. And you can see parts where it looks to play out exactly as is claimed, and you can see where it doesn't seem to play out in that way at all. And this is where you and I kind of get onto discussions about, well, what is it all about? Is it real? Does it hold any validity?
I think some validity. I think it's so like here's an example, right? If you go to a casino and roll the dice, there's a chance you're going to roll sixes. If you don't ever turn up at a casino, it's never going to happen,
Yeah.
right? There is, and you and I know this from NLP. I know this from being a hypnotherapist. You know this from being a personal trainer, right? If you speak to yourself, if your dialogue is your inner dialogue is said in a certain way, and you are mindful of how your emotions are affecting your body, you can change the performance of what you're going to do that day. If you write down a training plan stick to that training plan, and on tough days, put on whatever motivates you to get through it. And if that means imagining that you're Xena, Princess Warrior, or if that means imagining you're going to battle, and that music gets you there, if it's fucking Night Wish, whatever, if it gets you where you need to be mentally, you're going to push through those last couple of reps, those last couple of miles, right?
Mm.
If, if you're somebody, and it's happened, this has worked for me in the past, I write down those goals and I repeat them on a daily basis. It keeps me focused. And I think that's probably a key word, focused in a
Yes.
certain direction, not
Yeah.
distracted, right? And so all of those manifesting principles of what you have to do, and you do have to believe that you can achieve. And that's not a pun intended. I'm not trying to
Mm.
sort of like, but there's I'm trying to think of who the boxer is, but it was Teddy Atlas was the trainer, and he was on, like, there was a couple of rounds to go, or it was the last round, and he's like, "We're the firefighters. We're the firefighter. We got to put out the fire. Your life depends on this. You've got to go out there." And he's geeing him up, and he gives him this massive fucking speech. And of course, it's all filmed and it's all on the internet. Teddy Atlas, we're the firefighters. Are you going to put out the fire? Can we depend on you? This is what we've worked for. This is what we trained for. And it's fucking goosebumps. It's hairs on, I mean, your hair standing up.
Mm.
And he goes out there and wins the fight, right? He had spent his entire life training as a young lad, visualizing, dreaming, imagining, training that one day he could be the world champion, right? Everybody he beat had the same dream.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
And there's the point. Everybody else did the same
had this,
thing.
yeah,
And if you take that out of a professional context and put it into the context of you and I have worked and coached everyday people that have these ideas and dreams of what it is they want, the goals that they want to reach. And we will have coached them probably in very similar ways. Well, kind of write it down. This is your to-do list. This is what you need to do to
yeah.
get there. And does it ever stick?
I think this is where it gets wrong, or where it's a sticky issue, right? Is without a doubt that there's no look. You and I, before we started this channel, sat down and met up in a pub with notepads, right, and discussed all the elements of it. How we
Yeah.
start it, what do we talk about it, what do we want to achieve, how do we want to achieve it. I mean, this week alone, we've probably spent 10 hours talking about thumbnails, descriptions. I mean, you and I, for 2.5 hours yesterday, whilst talking in big moments of silence, designed a YouTube banner and
Yes.
was going backwards and forwards. It's like, and anyone that doesn't like it, fuck you, because you wouldn't believe how many times we got to that point only to change it again, right?
Yeah.
But we're going through this whole process. And so somebody with law of attraction will say that's demonstrating intention. And it's a valid point, because if we didn't put that much effort into it, we wouldn't have a podcast. We wouldn't be talking now.
Mm.
And, you know, you were the one that came up with the idea. You were the one that asked me if I fancied doing it. And then we sat down and discussed what it would be. And I was like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So putting intention out there, putting vibration out there, putting frequency out there. It's all of those things, right? And
Mm.
you can tick
Yeah.
all of those boxes. We've ticked all of those boxes. And we were talking about it yesterday. We won't really know what this is like until we're into this for 6 months. And then it'll be, well, do we like it or don't we like it? Is it worth the effort? Has it been worth the time? If it is worth the effort, why is it worth the effort? And there's all of these questions. And every one of those questions ticks the tick box of law law of attraction, affirmations, talking about it, putting your intention out into the universe, make a plan, take action. Right.
Yeah.
So they're
The
the basic
difference being
principles
there's
of
no guarantee that
that's the point. It's the
the
basic
result at the
principles
end.
of a business plan.